click. Ooh, I'm on a jumbotron. Okay, so ditto. I could just say, yeah, what he said. Just what he said. There are truths. And so I will parlay my experience of these truths in the form that I've experienced them on what Brad already said. And I think that's going to be a good takeaway for you, is what's true is what's true. And to identify that within your own world, and then ask God, what's yours to do? It may be that what's yours to do is to support a man like Brad or a woman like me. That it's not the entrepreneur track, but maybe you're the one that is the number 2 on the team. So what we don't want you to do is make you feel like that you're all supposed to go be an entrepreneur. But what we do want you to do as human beings is to be inspired to find what's yours to do. And to know through our story that your dream can come true also. That's what I want for you the most out of this. And if we're doing that in Mississippi, then it has a ripple effect out there in the world. And it's a function of loving yourself. And my passion and my calling is to love well. To start my story is to start by saying, sort of like Brad, I needed so much because I was so damaged as a child. So I came into the business world broken. So let me just after that say, embrace your vulnerability. Do not run from it. It is your gold. And it's what most people do, is they're so frightened of it and pack it away. And then it morphs into these things and these behaviors and these thoughts that sabotage you and sabotage your dream and your happiness. Back to my deal, the business. My road has been through a series of closed doors. So I value closed doors. They have been an extremely important direction for me. As childhood didn't work out so well, I started college and fell apart. I was not able to do college. I was so mentally fractured. So I left college and came home and simply began working. And I was in this little dingy office at University Medical Center in the computer services department. But what fell apart for me is I wanted to be a doctor, actually, when my innate talent was actually being very artistic. But I didn't think that was anything special. Sidebar to that. Let me step to the side. I'm a lateral thinker. Don't let that drive you crazy. It's part of how you paint. It's not 1, 2, 3. You go from side to side. So let me step at the side over here and say, your talent is what is going to sort of come easy to you. And just because you don't have to earn something, work hard for something, maybe something comes easy to you, notice it, honor it. It may be the actual genetic gift, God's gift into you. I put my artistic stuff to the side. I thought everyone was. But actually I found out I kind of really was a color genius. I remember studying color before I could talk. Okay. So in the computer services department, trying to have a job, trying to make a living. Guess what I found out there at 18? I almost got fired. I got put on probation because I messed up one little number on the punch card, and it caused the whole accounting department at UMC to have to work overtime. My little self spent tons of dollars at UMC, and I got put on probation. And I said, well, wonder why you would let an inexperienced minimum wage person like me have that much power. That makes no sense. And the head of the programming department, he said, well, Amy, you're right. I said, well, yeah. So I get to be the first one to screw it all up and suffer over it, but shouldn't you have changed this a long time ago? Then I rose to the top, and I was the youngest office manager. Guess what? You see what that did? It was something that was horrifying, and it squeezed me into a space to really find out a possibility for myself. You know? I found out I was a leader that young. Everyone else in the office was older than me. And the way I discovered that I was a leader is that I didn't mind being wrong. And they saw that. And they saw how I dealt with that. So then I didn't mind showing you how you might be wrong too. And let's take a look at that. In your company, in your world, with your children, with yourself, don't be afraid of healthy accountability. Healthy accountability versus toxic accountability, the main thing that healthy accountability doesn't include, it doesn't include shame. And that's what I was told by many therapists I would never heal from, is the problem of shame. We can be with each other, and we can work with each other, and we can get some stuff done without shame. You are not a bad person, but what we need to do is look at what you're trying to accomplish and what might be sabotaging that, and take a look at it in the face with love. So today, after it's been 27 years, y'all, that Harold and I, and he's in the back, he is never the front man. It always has to be me. Dadgummit, you're going to have your turn where you have to be up here talking. I was the artistic part through Harold's photography business that was booming as a commercial photographer. I was able to study face after face after face to realize my ability with this weird tool called makeup, that it can have the most beautiful ability on your face, on your face, on your face, and your face to show you yourself in a way that you've always wished was there and knew was there, and not call attention to itself. And it was like the biggest discovery ever, particularly after not many of you are old enough to remember the 80s fashion where you had blue and purple eyeshadow on and pink blush to match and fuchsia lipstick. You know what I'm saying? My timing is everything with business. My discovery, and everybody don't miss Peter Sims, who wrote the book Little Bets, that's going to be talk in a minute. Don't miss him. That's exactly what he's talking about. A small discovery can end up being the whopper idea to your success. And my discovery was my ability with color and the illusion on the skin and the way that it makes my eye socket look twice as wide as it is. There's the thing that women want to know. They don't want to look like anyone else. They want to look like themselves. But this stuff that I have called makeup, it can reveal that to you. My eyes are much more turquoise with my eyeshadow called New York Magic along the lid. Do you get what I'm saying a little bit? Men, I used to do a lot of image consulting for you guys. One thing, let me just say to the side, you have got to have great shoes. Stop wearing tired shoes. When you cross your legs, don't let your hair hang out of the sock. You got to have long enough socks. And we see the soles of your shoes. You may have a great suit on, but the shoes you've got, I need the men have to have something. I'm going to jump around a little bit because I don't want to talk too long, and I can because this journey has been really long. Another power of a closed door. Let me just tell you this little short story. Guess what? We had the chance with Saks Fifth Avenue. When Saks Inc. was here before they were in Birmingham, our very first employee's husband was kind of high up with Saks. And that, so it's through a relationship we got to talk to him. Well, ended up being they were kind of interested in me. I could be photographed well. They kind of liked the Southern aspect. They liked the idea of an exclusive deal. They saw some opportunity there. So they were willing to listen. So it's been a year working on finding out their numbers. We knew their numbers. We knew the kinds of margins that they were accustomed to. We knew we could beat that. I worked with a fixture designer for Saks. So we were designing a fixture, a boutique within the department stores. Harold and I traveled the country to look at their flagship stores and see what would be kind of beautiful and different. And okay, so blah, 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 blah. Had sessions and conversations along the way for a year. We ended up having on our laptop, or meaning just right there, ready to present to them this whole Amy Head Cosmetics concept that would be state-of-the-art, really different in all their flagship stores. You can just imagine. I don't know how you are, but I'm one fat paradox. I constantly am shivering over more success and also continue to get booted out into more. I'm on both sides of the fence. Now that's just how my personality is set up. Because of that, I think it's some of my best stuff, though. Actually, the clarity of my vulnerability still sits with me. So, with that in mind, Harold requires me to do the talking at the final meeting where we're going to show him our idea. I am sweating. You know how this is where I sweat here the most. So I have this great clothes on, and then it starts to drip. I feel it. And Harold is, no, Amy, you do the talking. Well, it was good. We chit-chatted, and finally I just said in plain talk, do you want to see my idea? We should get going. Well, we had faxed back and forth our non-compete clause, contract. They said, okay, that looks good. So we knew by the time we ended up getting to Birmingham, that's when now they were in Birmingham. All right, here, sign it. Well, no, I don't know that we'll do that. Bottom line is, they didn't sign my non-compete clause contract. We didn't show them the idea. The guy came around to my side of the table and he said, Amy, so you're not going to show us? And I said, no, would you? Don't ever fall in love with a deal. Don't ever fall in love with a deal. If I would have opened that laptop to show him our beautiful concept, I would have had to go in the bathroom and throw up. He said, you don't trust me? I thought, good Lord. I said, you know, no, I don't trust you. I said, oh, I'm sure you're fine, but what if someone else is in your seat next year? Your intellectual property, your concept, my whole homework that was created out of this big fat closed door is my retail concept that exists today, and this is how I came up with how to train others to think and paint like me, was through this avenue. If I hadn't had some big deal like that, I wouldn't have gotten that homework done. But I can't tell you how happy I am we walked away from that. Since then, we've heard of all of the cosmetic lines that have gone broke with department store deals. So, be happy about closed doors. They are important direction. Be okay with being wrong. It means you're going to learn something new. There's something better around the corner, and go, okay, I was wrong. Moral of the story. And thank you, Mississippi. If we would have moved to LA or New York, I'd have just tucked tail and come home. This is the place I can take care of my women, and they appreciate it and know it. They don't know it there. It's here. It's real. It can be real. This is a wonderful, important place to do the thing that's yours to do. And that is the main homework. Meditate and journal, and read and listen to yourself and maybe 2 other people. Not everybody. I love you. Take care. Thank you.
Amy, thank you. I can say this because I married a Mississippi woman, but you show us all that Mississippi women are not only beautiful on the outside, but they've got brains and business acumen to back it up as well. So thank you. I chuckle because my talking points right now encourage me to point out that I don't use your product. Well, duh, I don't use your product. But I could probably use an image consultation from you at some point as well. Now, let me transition. I don't use Amy's product, but I do use the next guy's product. I can tell you that. So, our next speaker is Mark Henderson, the owner of Lazy Magnolia Brewing Company. Lazy Magnolia is the brainchild of Mark and his wife, Leslie. Born and raised in Mississippi, the couple met in college and moved to the Gulf Coast in 2000, something about that year 2000 for you all, to pursue careers in engineering. The first steps toward the founding of Lazy Magnolia happened one Christmas when Leslie, probably like a number of you ladies out there in the audience, including my wife, probably couldn't figure out what to buy Mark for Christmas and wound up buying him a homebrew kit. She couldn't think of anything else exactly to get him. Mark only got to brew, and I think he'll tell this story, one batch of beer before his engineer wife took over, right? So he got one batch, and I think, like, again, well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but like most wives said, move over, we can do this better. So I'm sure Leslie said, move over, we can do this better. They had a dream to make this hobby their career, and that dream became reality in January of 2005 when that first batch of beer was brewed on their Lazy Magnolia system. The company continues to grow to this day, leading the way for the expanding of the craft beer business in Mississippi. Please join me in welcoming Mark Henderson.
Good morning. I am absolutely astounded to be on the same stage as all of these people. I don't fit necessarily in this group. I'm not at this level yet, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and tell you a little bit about our story. Brent mentioned it. Leslie bought me a beer kit for Christmas. I brewed exactly one batch. I went to brew the second batch. The first one was drinkable. It was passable. Not great, but drinkable, right? And about halfway through, she's like, look, if we are going to make good beer, I'm like, we? You need to make a work chiller. That's the only way we're going to be able to do this. And so I was relegated to the basement from then on to build gadgets to support her hobby. And I came home one day, and my office was stacked full. I have a little home office, right, and with a little computer in the corner, and I had stainless steel pots stacked up to the ceiling. I had about 500 pounds of grain. Think about that for just a minute. 50-pound sacks, right, stacked up, right, in my home office. And I'm like, what are we doing here? And she said, hey, look, this weekend I need you to build me a brew sculpture. A brew sculpture? What is a brew sculpture? It is a contraption that's 10 feet tall, it's 4 feet wide, and about 12 feet long, right, so that she could make good beer. And I was like, how much does that cost? And she says, well, you know, parts, you know, if we bought it, it'd be expensive, but, you know, you need to learn how to weld. And we can save some money, and the next thing you know, we'll be able to make good beer. And I'm like, and I looked it up, and I'm like, this is like $20,000. This is for a weekend hobby, and you know the legal limit's only 200 gallons a year, right, per household, per person, right? And you go, what are we going to do with all of this? She says, I don't know. You're going to figure that out later. And it's much like entrepreneurship in general, right? You solve one problem at a time. And so we started the path of looking down it and saying, you know, what is it that we're going to do? How are we going to get there from here? I said, well, let's take a look. And I started calling people. And of course, everybody knew in 2000 that brewing beer was illegal. And it took me a long time. I asked a bunch of people. I asked an attorney here in Jackson to research that for me. He said, Mark, I'm not taking your money. That's illegal. I'm like, okay. Do you know anybody else I can talk to? And he pointed me to a judge, and he pointed me to another person. Eventually made it to the head of the ABC here in the state of Mississippi. And he said, that would be 6 months in jail, $25,000 fine. And I'm like, I'm not going back to jail. But I said, being an engineer, engineers are very special people, right? We're all about rules. And the rules are crazy things, right? You know, you got speed of light, you got gravity. As engineers, we're used to real rules, right? Rules that you cannot break. And the law is a little different, right? Lawyers are a very special breed of people, right? You know, they'll make up new words and new definitions, and the rules only apply to this definition. And so I went down the process. The head of the ABC, I said, can you show me where it says that in the law? And the law is a very special thing, right? It does not tell you what you can and cannot do. It simply assigns consequences to certain actions. Everybody obeyed the speed limit judiciously on the way here, right? Right? Don't admit to doing anything bad. Everybody did it, right? He said, yeah, give me 30 minutes. I'll send it back to you. 3 hours later, he calls me and says, you know, I can't find it, but it has to be in there. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. But he says, you know, as it turns out, beer in the state of Mississippi is not an alcoholic beverage. Excuse me? Yeah, it's beer, and that's actually regulated by the Mississippi State Tax Commission. You need to call Ronnie Lynch. And so I called Ronnie Lynch, and I said, Ronnie, can I brew beer in the state of Mississippi? I've been told no 1,000 times. And Ronnie says, sure. Okay. Are you sure? He says, yeah, you send me a check for $1,000, you get some fingerprints and a little data done, right? You show me your federal brewer's permit, we got you covered. And I was like, that's it? Ronnie, how come there are no breweries in the state of Mississippi? He says, I don't know. You're the first person to ask. And I go, interesting. And it tells you a lot about entrepreneurship, right? It's much like getting married. You only need one yes. It's all it takes. You just need one to say yes. Leslie and I have been married almost 20 years now. I caught her completely off guard, and she said yes. And that's kind of how we got started. These days we brew a few beers. And those of you that have known us from the beginning know that these are not the same beers that we started with. We are hardcore capitalists, and Southern Pecan's the only one that survived our initial entry into the marketplace. And that's because I don't know why. It's not a beer that you would have picked as your flagship beer. It's one of the most expensive beers that you can imagine trying to make. Pecans are just not the cheapest thing in the world, right? And we use massive quantities of them. But it was one of the things that we took to heart. Leslie and I have been, we're native Mississippians. We're born and raised. We've been committed to Mississippi. Mississippi made a huge investment in us along the way. Those of you who are familiar with the Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science, Leslie and I attended that place. And when I went, I was relegated to the remedial math course. Very special place, right? You can imagine a young kid going to the math and science school, selected from a little school in South Mississippi, and going, I'm in the remedial math course? And they're like, yeah, we think that's probably the best place for you. And before I finished high school there, that was 2 years, right, I completed a semester of differential equations. So that's all the calculuses, that's all the things, right, and a couple of semesters of DE and some special projects along the way, right? It is simply an opportunity. And that's one of the things that Mississippi is actually absolutely known for, right? Is saying, hey, look, we don't care where you're from. We don't care how much money you got. You have an opportunity here. We created Lazy Magnolia in 2005, and it was hard. I've actually been laughed out of a bank, and I don't blame him. He got himself tickled, right? Can you imagine a 29-year-old punk showing up on your doorstep saying, hey, look, I would like 1 million of your hard-earned dollars. I'm going to spend them all building the first brewery in the state of Mississippi, which I know that you know is illegal. I'm going to sell a bunch of our frou-frou beer, right, to a bunch of people here in Mississippi that have only had, right, the big macro beers. And I will get the very first ever brewing permit ever issued in the state of Mississippi since Prohibition for a packaging brewery. That's 1907, for those of you keeping score, right? And he goes, I think I understand fully. And he got himself tickled because I was very serious and he was very serious and he had no desire to hurt my feelings in any way, shape, or form. But you could just see him, right? He's smiling and he's just looking at this and he's like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to tell this kid no in a very reasonable way. And he smiled and then he covered his mouth and then you could see him shake and he goes, excuse me. And he steps outside, right, and he starts to laugh. And I think at that point he's embarrassed, right? But he's lost, right? This is like my old uncle, right? Once he got tickled, it was all done. And he proceeded to close the door behind him and start to cackle. And it just got louder and louder as he tried to excuse himself. And I was like, I think that business plan is busted. And it was. There was no way that I was going to get $1 million to build a brewery. And so what I did is I managed to con a few family and friends and ponying up a few dollars. Went and deposited at that bank and started playing the game of trying to figure out how banks think and what it is that they're looking for, because they won't tell you what the rule book is, right? You have to sit there and probe it and take the black box and eventually try and track down, I see, that's the busted number, right? And come back around and do this and that. I wish I could be like Brad. Unfortunately, on the manufacturing side, it is a huge scale. Just this last week, I signed my name to yet another $1 million loan. And it was to buy kegs. Not any equipment, right? Nothing very special or fancy. Stainless steel containers that cost $100 each. And we have right at 10,000 of them in our fleet now, spread across 12 states. It's absolutely amazing. I can feel Amy's pain, right? You look at some levels of success and go, I'm not sure that I'm prepared for that, right? And knowing that you're in 12 states, and it's just, wow, right? How is it that this little beer called Southern Pecan somehow has reached enough people at this point that they can now go, hey, look, you know what? We love that beer. We got 20,000 fans on Facebook or something, right? And I don't call them fans, I call them patrons. Right? And it's one of the aspects of the creative economy and the internet and all of these things that has fundamentally changed the marketplace. It used to be that patrons, right, you would be Leonardo da Vinci and you'd be set up in a castle someplace, right? And your patron was the lord of the land. And now our patron is you guys. And you have the ability to reach out and trade a $10 bill for a 6-pack of beer and say, I am going to be a patron for this company. Man, wrap your brain around that, right? And it doesn't matter if it's Twitter or if it's Facebook or if it's push text or whatever it is, right? It's the same thing, right? It is a personal one-on-one connection with a consumer who goes, you know what? I believe in what you're doing. I believe in your product. You're doing a great job. You're doing good things for Mississippi. You're doing good things. And I want to be part of it. It is a fundamental change in the way our economy works. Some of the things that we've focused on along the way, and the last one there is the one that I think is the most impressive. Leslie and I started, and it was no lie. It was Leslie and I at 10 o'clock at night filling kegs, right, till 2 in the morning, because we had day jobs, and then coming back at 6 in the morning so I could fix the forklift, so I could make a delivery at 7, so I could be at work at 8. And now I've got 32 people. I don't brew beer anymore. I still fix a lot of the machines, as it turns out, and build a few along the way as well, right? You got to use that engineering talent that was part of what you were, right? But recognized quality is one of the things that we've always focused on. And we won two medals at the World Beer Cup many years ago. And these days we've got so many awards and medals hanging on the wall, right? And I am so not responsible for most of them. I've got 32 people. They're responsible for them. And we hang them up, and I am so proud of those guys. Building team, number one thing that you got to do as an entrepreneur, right? This is a chunk of them anyway. This is the marketing team on the right, and that's Roscoe Bandana on the left. Another aspect of our creative economy, right? A couple of Mississippi guys and girls, right, who signed their name on our cold room wall. And the wall of that cold room will one day be much more valuable than Lazy Magnolia ever will think about being, right? There will be names on that wall. Every first Friday we have a little get-together where we hook up with a local charity and we hook up with a local band and we get some local music and people come out and they try a few beers and they meet each other. And we have people from all over the planet come to this little bitty place in the middle of nowhere, Mississippi, and I'm not really sure why. Sure, maybe it's the beer, maybe it's the music.